Cult Cinema Podcast.
Greetings and salutations.
I just killed my best friend.
Your worst enemy.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 15, I'm pretty sure, of the Cult Cinema... 15?
Oh, God.
Well, technically 16, but we had the bonus episode, but that was because it's a bonus, we're calling this 15.
Yeah, that's fair.
Welcome to the Cult Cinema Podcast. I'm Gage.
I'm Ashely.
And today, we're talking about Michael... Is it Lehmann? Lehmann?
Lehmann?
Lehmann?
Mm-hmm.
Michael Lehmann's 1989 film, Heathers.
Heathers. What did you think of Heathers?
I mean, so this is my third time that I've watched it.
Okay.
And,
right. I remember you telling me
yeah.
you've seen it.
I don't know. It's like, I've been having this debate in my head whether or not I actually like this movie. I liked it a lot when I first watched it. But so I watched this when I was in high school, like my junior year or so, and I thought it was all right. You know, it's quirky, angsty, cult classic movie from the 80s.
Yeah. So
I watched this, and then Parkland happened, the incident at Parkland High School in Florida. Mm. And I was like, and then I think a couple months later, I was at some friend's house for a party, and they had this playing in the background, and I was like, nah, I don't know.
Not great.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think they just put it on, I don't know. But it's like, it's definitely one. It's as a lot of movies that we've covered are. It's one of those movies that you definitely couldn't get away with making today. But except they did. They literally made a remake TV series.
Yeah, they did.
I think most people forgot that even it existed.
Well, it got canceled after the first season.
Yeah.
But also, funny you bring up Parkland because the series actually got canceled because of another mass shooting that happened. And I don't remember if it was the last episode of the season and then the shooting happened or vice versa, but they were like, oh, we can't keep going with this.
Yeah, it's a really weird film to address today, given basically what's become a resurgency of the American school shooting.
Yeah.
So it's...
Or mental health issues that are definitely more talked about now than they ever were.
Yeah. Because when I was in high school, there was... and when I was younger, there was the Sandy Hook incident, and then there was the Parkland incident in high school, and then even one of the schools here in Columbus, actually, one kid was arrested because they found that he was planning some shit. So it's scary stuff, and it's weird watching this film with all of that in mind, because this movie does take place in Ohio.
Right.
So it's weird looking at it from that perspective, and from being alive to hear about these things that are actually going on, and seeing it kind of dramatized in this weird way in this film.
Yeah.
And it's just it's also one of those movies where it's just it's people trying to, and I don't know. I didn't grow up in the 80s. I don't know what high school life was like back then. But I feel like this wasn't... I've yet to find a good teenage film that does a solid representation of what high school life is really like, at least based on what I've experienced. Because you come across a lot of toxic people, but at my high school, I was fortunate enough to where at least from what I could see, bullying wasn't too much of a problem. So it's not... I've never seen anything severe. Of course, kids, I was more relevant when I was younger, and kids were picking on each other, but that's because you're a stupid kid and you've yet to learn what respect is.
Sure.
But as you grow up, you learn to just because I was one of those people where I wouldn't say that I was friends with everybody in what you make in all the different cliques, but I had a mutual respect and with a lot of different peoples that were a part of a lot of different friend groups. So
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good you had that kind of experience. I had almost this exact experience.
Yeah.
I was friends with people that I absolutely hated, but I was friends with them because, yeah, they were popular, and I didn't want to be not popular.
Yeah.
I slowly, throughout my sophomore year, summer into junior year, realized that and basically told everybody to fuck off. And then this exact same thing happened. Everyone ostracized me. I had no more friends anymore.
Really?
And yeah, by my senior year, I wasn't even going to school because I hated being there so much and dealing with these catty, awful fucking girls that just wouldn't leave you alone. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to be friends with you. That doesn't mean you have to go out of your way to be a fucking bitch to to me every day of my life. And that's exactly what happened in my high school experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. And I barely graduated.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be different for everybody else, but it's like, so, I mean, I grew up in a very, kind of safe environment, I guess you could say. There wasn't a lot that really happened. Granted, closer to the end of my high school career, there was a lot that was going on with the underclassmen because they were all stupid. We had incidents of, like, freshman kids starting fight clubs and, like, getting in fights over drug money. Yeah, like, it was getting real towards the end of my high school career. And these were freshmen that were getting involved with this stuff.
It is a generational thing.
Yeah.
So even between, and that's not even 4 years. So that's not even a full generation of people that we're really talking about here. But, like, same kind of thing. Like, your cousin, my stepson, who's your age, he had a really great high school experience. But, like, my niece, who's just a few years younger than you guys, is having a terrible go of it. So I think it's just like maybe being males too in a certain way is a little better. I'm sure the school system in a certain way is different as well, especially being, Canal. For our listeners who don't know where Canal is, it's small. Even though it's a growing community, it's still very small. There's still cliquey things that happen, even as adults. Like, I stayed and worked in Canal for years after I graduated high school. And again, the same thing. Like, these bitches from high school just can't let it go, ever. It's not until I got into probably my 30s, some of them started reaching out to me, and I was like, you were a fucking horrible person. Why would you think I'd ever want to be friends with you? Thanks for the apology, I guess, but
Yeah.
no. Like... So I see how it can even flow depending on probably your sex, probably your school system, and probably your home life. I'm sure all three things, will dictate the kind of person you are in school.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well,
on that depressing note, let's talk about the actual movie that we watched.
Let's do it.
And not our childhoods.
Yes.
So, like you said, directed 1989, Michael Lehmann. All-star cast, obviously. We'll just say that at the top. Christian Slater, Winona Ryder, Shannon Doherty, who wasn't on 90210 yet, but she is from 90110 and, tons of other things. Lizanne Falk and Kim Walker are our main players here. The Heathers, and then, of course, Jason Dean, JD. I kind of flip it back and forth between his first name and then when they start calling him JD. So, same guy. Bear with me. So, we open on 3 young women sitting in a garden, and the music in the soundtrack is brilliant. They put old songs over new twists, and it's just chef's kiss. It's perfect. I think that's one of my favorite things about this movie is definitely the soundtrack. But they are all walking over to start playing croquet. And some people might not know what croquet is. It's a game you play in your yard with bat type things
little
and
like
balls.
hammers, and
Yeah.
I've played it maybe once. I don't even know how the game really works, but
I don't know the rules.
Yeah.
The balls though are really heavy metal balls that are painted. So it's like getting them into these little like trellis things, and then that's how you score points. But yes, I don't know the rules.
Yeah.
All 3 of these girls, though, are dressed to match their croquet balls. So I refer to the Heathers in this movie not by their first and last name, but by the color of their balls. So
Okay. I don't remember any of their last names, so
I don't either.
So yeah,
and
that's
I figured
probably
that
a
was
good way to follow it.
No. So first Heather walks over. She's yellow Heather, and this is Lizanne Falk.
Mm-hmm.
She hits her ball, and then she says, "It's your turn, Heather." And the other Heather, Kim Walker, who is red Heather, walks over. She says, "No, Heather, it's Heather's turn." And Shannon Doherty walks over, and she is green Heather. Just to lay it out there.
By the way, apparently someone did a count. I'm pretty sure the name Heather is said 90 times in this movie.
That's it? I really thought it was going to be more.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be in the, like, a couple hundreds, honestly. Well,
yeah, it definitely seems that like every other sentence in the movie someone says the name Heather. So
yeah, absolutely.
But apparently, like I think Dan Walters, I think, who was the main screenwriter for this film, came up with the name before he even started writing the script.
Yeah. Just
because I guess maybe this is a situational thing, but I guess like the name like Heather was the name that that bitch that classic uppity popular girl from high school. So
I have 5 people on my don't be friend list because of their names.
And they're all named,
and
all named Heather.
No. Heather's on there though.
Oh,
I've met these people throughout my life, and I've never had a good interaction with them, whether it was, working or school or whatever. So I've just like written them off altogether. If I meet somebody named Heather, I'm out.
I don't think
you could be the nicest person in the world. I'm just not going to give you the time of day.
I don't think I've actually met anybody whose name is Heather. I don't think I've personally met anybody that has the name Heather.
I worked with a Heather, one of my first jobs in high school. She was an older girl, but again, made your life hell for no reason. You just don't have to be this way.
I did go to a high school with a girl named Ruth, which people thought was odd for someone our age to be named Ruth. But
yeah. Ruth's okay by me.
Yeah, it's not Heather. At least it's not Heather.
No, it's not Heather. It's not Heather. It's not Jennifer, Nicole,
Stacy,
Michelle, or Crystals with a K.
Crystal with a K specifically?
Yes,
okay.
Crystal with a K specifically. I know a very wonderful woman named Crystal with a C.
Yeah.
She is amazing.
It's like, because there's so many people like that would take the spelling of a name or a word that people know just fine and then have to twist it in one way or another in terms of the spelling, because they're got to be special and they got to be quirky.
Right.
They got to have
unique.
Yeah.
Unique name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Crystals with a K. Can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, back to croquet.
Yes.
Shannon Doherty, who's the green Heather, the final Heather, she's actually reading a book, but she does put it down for a second to hit her green ball. Then finally, red Heather walks up and kisses her ball and then chucks it forward. So in croquet, I do know this rule. If you're at the end and you're winning, you just literally throw it over like the finish line because you won. But this ball hits Winona Ryder, who is buried in the ground. But her name is not Heather in this movie. She's the only different one, and her name's Veronica. But it bonks her right on the head, and then we hear Dear Diary, and this is kind of a narration by Veronica in this entire movie. Mm-hmm. And she is detailing things with her life and, what's going on at the moment. We then see Yellow Heather walk up to her, and she's sitting on the stairs writing in her diary at this point, but she kind of like fucking kicks her. Like, Did you see that? She kicks her like right in the butt.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your damage, Heather? That's probably okay. I have qualms with this film.
That's one of my favorite lines.
It's one of my favorite lines is "What's your damage, Heather?"
Me too.
I'm gonna start using that from now on. Whenever someone pisses me off, I'm just gonna go, "What's your damage?" But I have to say it in like the sassy teenage girl voice though.
Yeah.
What's your damage, Heather?
Exactly. And that's exactly what she says after she kicks her right in the ass. And she says, Heather wants you in the cafeteria. She needs to see you right away. She's like, fine, God, didn't have to fucking chuck, God.
Yeah, didn't have to assault me in the middle of the hallway.
Really, minding my own goddamn business on the stairs, out of the way. Mm-hmm. So we get to the cafeteria, and Red Heather wants Veronica to forge a note in a guy's handwriting. I didn't catch his name at first, but we learn it's Kurt.
Yeah.
Right? Later on, we learn that. And they want a letter in his handwriting, and they want to put it on Martha Dump Truck's lunch tray. So we'll just say this at the top, since we're here now. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of derogatory shit that's said in this movie that I'm not repeating.
Yeah. I'm a little I mean, it's... You see it all the time.
It's uncomfortable.
It's a lot of... the casual use of the F slur to describe homosexuals is very prominent in this film.
Right.
And it's...
and uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, just...
not doing it.
Uncomfortable, to say the least. Yeah.
Right. And they have, obviously, very derogatory names for people they don't like.
Yeah.
So... I'll say dump truck only because, honestly, I don't remember if they refer to her as Martha at any other point in this movie. The Heathers definitely don't. I think Veronica does because she's obviously not the piece of shit person all the Heathers are.
They do mention her real last name, which I think is Dumpstrom or something.
Yeah, it obviously is like matchy.
Yeah.
My previous last name was Wetmore, okay? I get it. So we're immediately getting the gist, obviously, that all the Heathers suck and they're terrible people and they like torturing people in their high school. Mm-hmm. Not just girls, we soon find out. Veronica doesn't want to do this, though, because she, again, isn't the shittiest one out of all of them. And I just don't think she honestly wants to, be mean to people throughout most of the movie.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she feels that pressure from her peers and the bitchy girls.
The need and the want to be popular, but with that comes, surrounding yourself with very toxic and mean people.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily want to be that person yourself.
Right.
At least that's what this movie kind of describes popularity as, is it's often depicted in people that are popular are just total pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Which in the younger years I had qualms with some of the people that I considered popular. Granted, once we got to high school, like I said, there was kind of more of a mutual respect, and more people that were considered popular were genuinely, decent people from what I experienced. So, of course, I understand that that's not going to be the same case for everybody. We already went over that, but anyway.
Right. Right, for sure. Well, Veronica writes the note, though, and Yellow Heather ends up going and putting it on this poor girl's tray, who clearly, isn't popular or anything like that. We then see kind of a pan around the cafeteria, and two jocks in particular. I call them jocks for a reason. They're always wearing sports things, so I'm just sticking them there. Yeah. They're talking about how they want to bang all the Heathers, and fine. Then there's some kids trying to raise money for Africa, I think. I can't remember
some hunger thing. I think that's...
Right. Something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then finally we see Christian Slater, hot-ass young Christian Slater, who can still get it in this movie. I don't care. He looks so good. Black hair is working for me on him. But he's kind of just in the corner watching them, almost in what's happening here? Because he's not sure. Red Heather then says, well, guess what day it is? And Veronica says, oh, lunchtime poll. And Green and Yellow Heather all say, well, what's the question? And Red Heather says, Heather, I told you in study hall. And then she, the Green Heather, acts super sorry and says she forgot. I feel terrible for Green Heather throughout most of this movie as well.
Yeah, because it's clear that she's kind of getting the butt end of, a lot of another, I think she's very much in the same boat. Granted, I think she does have a little bit more of a mean spirit deep within her, as we'll see later
Clearly.
in the film. But I think she's probably someone that was kind of brought into the group the same way that Veronica was, where she's just kind of there to be popular and doesn't necessarily mean to be mean-spirited, but kind of gets, I'm guessing, kind of corrupted by Red and Yellow Heather over time.
Right. Which is unfortunate.
That's my in-depth theory of that situation.
Oh, you're 100% right, for sure. So Red, Heather, and Veronica then kind of start walking around the cafeteria. And at this moment is when Veronica notices Christian Slater looking at her. But she accidentally bumps in, as she's staring at him, she bumps into another girl who we find out is Betty. And says she's sorry, but also sorry that she missed her birthday party last month. And Betty says, that's fine, you had a date. And I'm like, oh my God. Rude.
Yeah.
But obviously you're not friends with her right now, so I guess that's fine. But then she says she found some old pictures of them, and they're cute little, they were kids. It's Halloween costumes, clearly handmade Halloween costumes in these pictures. It's very cute. And then Red Heather grabs her and says, you know, come on, and yells at her for talking to Betty and drags her away. Even though Veronica's like, what the fuck? I was just talking to her.
Right, yeah. It does kind of show how people kind of do grow apart over time and for different reasons. But
I guess. This is a very quick, I don't want to say quick evolution for Veronica, but to some extent it is quick because obviously we don't know how much time is passing in this movie. Mm-hmm. So we then cut to Martha, who has now found the note on her lunch tray. We then see another group of kids, and the guy kind of turns to the table and says, shit, here comes Heather. And Red, Heather, and Veronica then walk up and ask these also kind of like preppy looking kids, I would say, their lunchtime poll question. And she says, you're given $5 million from Publishers Clearinghouse, but on the same day you get your check, aliens land on the earth and say they're going to blow it up in 2 days. What do you do? And we get some stupid answer from the guy. I didn't even write it down because it was so stupid.
Something along the lines of him giving it to his father because he's some successful stockbroker or something like that.
Sure,
yeah.
I believe you. I honestly don't care what came out of his mouth.
Classic.
Plus, we really never see him again.
Yeah.
Right, classic preppy idiot. Then the other girl, Courtney, says she'd give it all away to the homeless, which is cool, I guess. And Veronica looks at her and says, you're beautiful, and Red Heather drags her away. And I don't know if Veronica says that at this moment to be bitchy.
I definitely think so. Yeah, I think it's very much because it's when in the beauty pageants, when you ask, is like if you could wish for one thing and they all say world peace type thing. So it's
right.
Yeah.
Well, true. Then Veronica just basically tells Heather, like, look, why can't we just talk to other kinds of people? And then she goes on this rant about how she's worshipped and blah, blah, blah. And as they're finishing this basically conversation, she says another one of my favorite lines in the movie. Well, fuck me with a chainsaw, Veronica. It's not like I want to be friends with anybody. And I just...
So they
I love it.
Walters wrote this film, and he wanted it to have dialogue and slang that kind of held up with the times. I don't know how successful he was with that. Granted, there are a lot of good like one-liners, like "What's your damage?" and stuff like that. It's funny as well.
Yeah.
As to whether or not it holds up, I don't know if.
It doesn't.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't hold up. Even the damage line doesn't hold up at all.
Yeah.
Like I commend you for trying to bring it back. I hope it works out for you, but
yeah.
it's not something people say anymore. They also, if I remember correctly, because I did watch this Heather series.
Oh yeah.
I think they use the same kind of dialogue.
Yeah.
I think they used "What's your damage" a lot, if I'm remembering correctly.
I feel like you would have to in a sequel to this because it's like such a classic line from this film, and it's used repeatedly. So.
Right. So Red Heather says, well, to Veronica, we're going to a party at Remington University and we're brushing up on our conversation skills with the scum of the school. So this is stupid. And we kind of see this montage of them actually walking around and asking other types of people at their school the same question, which,
The type of
in my
people
mind, that would just...
Yeah, the type of people that aren't peaking in high school.
Right. College is their time.
Yeah.
Or not college. Either one.
I don't know. Like
some people I talked to, I was like, are you going to make it? Are you going to make it, friend?
some of them, yes. But like the nerdy guys, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Right. So then we cut back to the cafeteria and we see Martha going up to Kurt. Mm-hmm. I wrote some football guy because I honestly didn't remember his name at first. And gives him the note, and he just laughs so hard in her face, and oh my God, it's sad.
So,
and it's super.
I have a
sorry, go ahead.
I have a story that is kind of similar to this event, and so in 7th grade, I was informed that there was this girl that had a crush on me.
Okay.
I didn't know too much about her. I didn't really, I wasn't interested or anything like that. Let's just say that at the time she was not known for, and this is the shit that's gonna get me canceled one day by telling this story. She was not considered...
When you're a big famous director, someone's gonna dig out this episode on YouTube, like, fuck this guy.
She was not considered the most attractive at that point. She was not considered the most attractive girl in the 7th grade. Let's just say that.
Okay.
So, and with that, I found out that she had a crush on me. I didn't want to address it really that much, but my buddy had the brilliant idea of deciding to go up to her to tell her that I liked her, too. And
Aww.
I was so fucking mad at him because I got a call later that night from her saying, like, hey, I got your phone number from my friend because we had a mutual friend. And she was like, and I had to like basically like explain no and apologize on my friend's behalf for pulling that stunt because it was not right of him to do. And I called him later and I was like, you're a fucking asshole for doing that to her. But I felt so bad. So like I get that whole thing, and it's
but
shitty.
You're a remorseful person in this instance.
Yeah.
Like, look at how he reacted to her.
Yeah, Kurt did not respond to this in a respectful manner whatsoever. But
no. Garbage. He's garbage.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's that bad of a story.
Yeah.
At all. I think you're trying to be nice and spare her feelings. I'm sure whoever she is, looking back, is like, that could have gone in a really bad way. And it didn't.
Yeah.
So, good for you for not being a dick about it.
Thanks.
Unlike Kurt in this scene, because he is straight up a piece of human garbage.
Yeah.
Veronica, though, does look hurt. You can tell in her face that she feels bad. And we see JD in the corner just shaking his head like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is terribly mean. Yeah. We then cut to the bathroom where Green Heather... Again, I'm going to kind of breeze over this because it's so troublesome. And you see this a lot in 80s films too. And maybe that's why kids these days don't repeat some of the same mistakes. I hope it is anyway, because you would see these awful scenes in 80s and early 90s movies that you're like, that's not what I want to do. Basically, she wants Veronica to make her throw up because she's bulimic, which... We're going to breeze over what that is. I don't want to explain it, and I don't want to talk about it again. Don't do it if you're doing it out there. You're a better person than that. You don't have to throw up to make yourself feel better. Red Heather makes fun of her, which, I'm going to go ahead and assume that's why Green Heather is being this way, but we'll circle back to that. We then walk back into the cafeteria, and Veronica is just staring at JD. And Yellow Heather says, drool much, Veronica? And kind of like shoulder checks her. Again, with the violence. Just out of nowhere. She says his name is Jason Dean, and he just moved here, and he's in my history class. So Veronica walks up to him and asks him the lunchtime poll question. And he's like, basically, well, he first says, are you a Heather? So he already knows who the Heathers are one day into the school, which I guess says a lot about them. And she says, no, I'm a Veronica. And she asks him the lunchtime poll question. And he says, you know what? That is the stupidest question I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But I guess I just roll out to a lake somewhere with a bottle of booze and my sax, I think he says.
Yeah. So apparently
And
Christian Slater is a big saxophone guy here in this here universe.
Which never comes back.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't listen to jazz. He doesn't play a saxophone. Just saying.
I don't know.
Why bring that up?
Chicks dig a guy who can play the saxophone. Guys dig a guy who can play the saxophone.
Maybe that was a really popular thing in the 80s, like saxophones.
I don't know. 'Cause one of my favorite videos on the internet is two random guys in a New York City subway just randomly getting into a saxophone battle, and it's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Oh my God, I want to see that.
It's so funny. It's so great.
Every time I hear saxophone, I think of the scene from The Lost Boys with the dude playing the sax with no shirt on and a braided mullet. So
that sounds awesome. I haven't seen it, but that sounds amazing.
That was a thing. Oh, it's on the list. When that scene comes up, I'll just have so much to say. He does also mention, though, that he will take some Bach with him, and the classical music thing comes back around, so just saying, the sax was weird, a weird mention. We then see the jock boys saying they should beat him up because who does he think he is talking to Veronica and the Heathers? And he's different, so of course we must beat his ass. Mm-hmm. So they walk over to him and say, this cafeteria has no, I'm not repeating the words, policy. And Jason, JD, says, well, apparently they have a revolving door on assholes. And he pulls out a gun and shoots them. Or at least we think he shoots them. We cut to all the Heathers and Veronica playing, you guessed it, croquet. Talking about how he was suspended because he used a real gun but blank bullets. And I'm like, holy shit, you would be in jail.
Yeah.
That's not even a suspended from school. You can come back on school property. No. But he, didn't actually shoot them. But Veronica is basically like impressed though. Because, fuck those guys is basically what she's saying. And then Red Heather picks on Green Heather some more by knocking her ball like way out of the way into the bushes. But she pulls out this amazing shot and like pings it off a tree and then a beam or something and then gets right back into play, which is fucking impressive. Mm-hmm. But only to have Red Heather do it again because she's a fucking bitch.
It is shot like one of those classic fake trick shot videos that you see where people will like pretend that they're doing a trick shot and then cut to them like where you can like almost see their hand throw it against the wall or something like that.
True. It definitely wasn't well shot. Just impressive. Yeah. And again, it shows the power dynamic in this group of girls, which is garbage. Veronica's parents then come out and say, Heather, your mom's here. So they all end up leaving. And Veronica gets ready for a party they're going to tonight, that one at the college. We then are at a convenience store, and Veronica and Heather stopped before the party, and JD is also there, and he like orbs up out of nowhere and starts to flirt with Veronica. I mean, they're definitely flirting back and forth, but he hits it off, and she mentions something about the specific convenience store they're in. And he goes on and on about how he's moved all over the place, and this particular store has always been here, so. And she asked him to buy her slushie, and he said, was that slushie Coke or cherry? She says, I didn't say, but cherry.
You always go with the Coke.
I think that's a cool back and forth that they had. And lots of chemistry in this movie between the two of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's Christian Slater. I mean, it's young Christian Slater. How's it hard? I mean, have you seen Christian Slater now? He's not a bad looking dude. Like he's like one of the few like hot 80s actors that like maintained like a good look over the few decades.
It's a common theme for 80s actors, I say this because actresses, this doesn't apply. Mm-hmm. If you were fucked up on drugs most of the 80s, you look banging now. I Don't know how those miracles happen, but that's exactly what the case is.
So
for
you heard it
many
here,
an
folks.
actor.
If you want to look good in your 50s, do drugs.
Do tons of drugs in your teen years. Yes. 15, 16 preferably.
For legal reasons.
That's how old Christian Slater is. Yeah. Yes. Please do not do drugs.
Do drugs.
So, Veronica basically, they're walking out at this point, and Heather starts honking her horn, and Veronica basically says, I just don't like my friends, and they're like coworkers, and our job is being popular and shit, but I don't like them. And Jason tells her, well, maybe it's time for a vacation. Another good line. He delivers a lot of really good one-liners.
He also, and so his whole thing, like his attitude and like his personality is very much inspired by Jack Nicholson and his performance in a lot of films from this era. Mm-hmm. And he even states
that was a fun fact.
Yeah, and he even states that, and you do get a lot of like Jack Nicholson and The Shining type vibes with the way that he presents himself, and I think it absolutely does work. So. Yeah.
It does a really good job. Mm-hmm. Not only like it's all the way down to like his hand movements and body movements and what he's doing. I think more Jack Nicholson Joker than Jack Nicholson The Shining. Yeah, but
it's that kind of, quirky, charismatic, but kind of mysterious attitude that and personality that he brings to it. And it definitely works for the character.
It did. He did a really good job. So we then cut to the college party that Red Heather has dragged Veronica to. And some douchebag, creepy college dudes come up and tell them to toss their coats on the floor. Gross. And are they ready to party? And Red Heather says, yes, ready to party. And again, I can't emphasize how creepy these two dudes are. Mm-hmm. So these next few scenes are kind of intercut with Veronica writing in her diary and narrating how she needs to stop Heather. And Heather's such a terrible person. And we then see Heather and the one douchebag guy making out. Again, I didn't bother to learn either of these two guys' names. She then tells him, come on, I want to go back to the party. And he says, well, I just can't help myself. You look so hot tonight. And then she rolls her eyes and immediately goes down on him.
Yep.
So this happens all the time. And that's gross. Also, that's rape to an extent.
Yep. But it's
red flags.
But it's the 80s, so it's okay.
Red flags. Yeah. Red flags. We then see Veronica kind of, she's bored. She's in this back room. She lights her beer on fire and then tosses it out the window into a trash can that immediately catches on fire.
Yeah. Which it's
Red Heather's
it's set that shot. There's like combinations of shots are set up to make it seem like it's going to cause some kind of big disaster at the party. But we'll find that it's literally just to add like extra lighting to a later scene. But it's interesting. So, but yeah, it just.
Well, and she looks very surprised that it happened. Yeah. She's like, "Oh."
There is the scene where Veronica is in the hallway with the college student that she's been talking to, and she's clearly just not having it. But the guy is talking about like, it's nice to, talk to a girl and not have to ask what's your major, which is totally a thing that like any time that like, say if I'm like talking to a girl or like on Tinder or in real life or whatever, there's always that question that gets brought up because we're college kids. It's, what's your major or what are you studying at school? And if that question gets asked, that's how you know that the conversation is going nowhere.
That's the ender of the conversation, is what you're saying?
It's like that's how, if that happens at either the beginning or somewhere in the middle of your your conversation with somebody, then just like it's probably not going to work out.
Nothing going on here. Got it.
Because you have nothing more interesting to ask than what's your major? What are you studying? Oh, nursing? That's cool.
Why nursing?
I don't know.
Continue it. That's all I'm saying. There, you got another in next time you talk to a girl.
All right, cool.
Just keep asking questions. That's what women want, especially in their 20s.
Yeah. Okay. Noted.
So Red Heather's, though, in the bathroom, and she spits water into the mirror at herself. And at this moment, you're like, okay, you hate yourself just as much as everyone hates you too. Well, maybe not as much, but to an extent you do, I guess. We then see Veronica again kind of in this back room, and she gets cornered by the other douche guy. And she's saying she doesn't feel well. And he lays down and is basically like, you're going to fuck me, right? And she's like, no, this isn't happening, and walks out. And then we see the two dudes talking to each other, and again, intercut with her diary writings. And she's mad now at Veronica, Red Heather is, and again says, what's your damage? She says the other douchebag guy he's bitching at my douchebag guy because you won't fuck him. This is ridiculous. I brought you to this party. And she's like, look, I just feel super sick, so can we please motor? Which is another thing they say all the time in this movie. That's amazing. And Red Heather's like, hell no. And then Veronica just pukes right there on the floor. I mean, she warned you. She asked to leave.
It's the most, like, I've never heard a more toxic conversation in anything.
Seriously.
It's like, it's so bad. I don't know. I find it very difficult to like just about anybody in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like because it's like I even struggle to like JD as a character, and like I like the personality to like some extent, and some of the lines are really well written. But it's like everybody just is just kind of a piece of shit in this movie.
Yeah. Even Veronica's like turning point / arc isn't great.
Yeah.
She still kind of sucks throughout the whole thing too. Mm-hmm. But with that said, Veronica goes out the back door, and Red Heather follows her. And she basically tells her, no one at school Monday will talk to you anymore because I'll tell everyone you puked on me, at this party. And again, just cut back to Veronica writing in her diary. And then she tosses it in her bedroom. At this moment, we cut to her bedroom towards her open window. And JD has just climbed up there and scares the shit out of her. Because, one, how the fuck do you get here?
Yeah.
How do you know where she lives?
I was going to say, how do you know where she lives? Like,
Right.
Yeah. It's creepy. It's a continuity issue for one. And it's, I don't know. That kind of screams even bigger red flags for me. But it's Christian Slater, so it's okay.
Fine.
I will give him a pass because it's Christian Slater.
Ditto. He does apologize too, so there's that.
Oh, well, at least he's gentlemanly about it.
Sorry I stalked you all day and probably followed you from convenience store to party to your house. And now I'm climbing up your 2-story house with a ladder that I also brought from home up to your bedroom window. That's exactly what happened just now. But I'm sorry. This was not tasteful of me to do, is what he basically says. Then he says, yo, I saw your croquet kit out back. You want to go play a game? And then obviously they do it in her backyard because you see clothes everywhere. Mm-hmm. And she's just going on and on about how awful Red Heather is. And he says, well, killing her won't really matter, but I would love to see her puke. They kind of have a conversation about killing her, which Veronica, obviously at this point, assumes he's kidding. But she would love to see her puke. So we cut to the next morning. And I'm just going to say this now. What was the goal here of going into her home and trying to make her throw up in front of you?
I think just to humiliate her to some extent and make her physically feel like shit.
But why? Because if she's going to go to school on Monday, and we establish this as a Saturday, and tell everybody that Veronica puked on her at a college party, and then Veronica could just say, you puked on me in your house? I just don't see what the whole point of this was. Why wouldn't you make her puke at school in front of everybody? You know?
I don't know. I'm guessing it had to be more of like a JD pressuring, kind of pushing more on the situation so that he can have an excuse to kill her.
Sure. We'll go with that. I just don't see the point of
if we
doing
want
it
to
in
try
her
to
house.
make sense of the scene, then yeah, that's
Touche. So we're at her house, and again, the theme in the movie are all the colors these women are wearing. So not only does Red Heather wear red, her house is red. Her bedroom's pink and red. There's red everywhere in the home. Cups are red or white, like it's parallel. So Veronica's walking around and is like, what about orange juice and milk? What if we pour that together? What's the upchuck factor on that? Which, another wonderful line. JD, though, pulls out straight up Drano and is like, this will definitely make her puke. And she's like, ha ha ha, that'll kill her, though.
awkward
And, like,
pause.
is real uncomfortable. Right. Awkward ass pause. And then she's like, well, she won't drink anything that looks like that anyway. So then she pours milk and OJ together. He puts a blue Drano in a mug. Like, well, she won't see it now. It's in a mug. Like, I can't look down and see what's in there.
Yeah.
But okay. And again, Veronica's just like, look, that'll kill her. Stop messing around. That's not funny. So then she accidentally grabs the mug with the blue Drano stuff in it. And he tries to stop her, but not really. And just kind of lets her go. With a mug that has straight poison in it. Terrible.
Which it's
Veronica
interesting that he... Because his intention from the get-go was to kill her. And so when... It's interesting to see him hesitate in that moment and almost warn Veronica of what she's doing. But he chooses not to. So there is, I think that shows that there is some kind of, conflict within JD himself on whether or not he wants to go through with this. But I think when it...
At first.
Yeah, at first, at least.
Yeah.
Because...
No, he definitely gets over that real quick.
Yeah, because he does have a bit more of a... oh, holy shit reaction when they actually go through with it. But he's...
Right.
But he's very quick to kind of do it, whatever they can to, try to play it off as something else later on. And we'll get to that as we discuss the next scene.
Right. Because as you said, they, wake her up and he's like, Veronica said you need a hangover cure. Here's a family recipe. And she's like, obviously I'm not drinking that. I'm not dumb. Like, I know you put something in there. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, all right, well, I knew it'd be too intense for you anyway. And she's like, really? Because you called me chicken? And he's like, well, I guess you're not going to drink it. But she does anyway and chugs it straight down. And then immediately chokes and dies and falls right into a glass table in her room. And yes, Veronica and JD at this moment panic. And Veronica at first is like, I killed my best friend. And JD's like, and your worst enemy. So
and she responds,
really
same difference.
Right. He then kind of looks around and he sees a notebook. And he's like, look, this could be a suicide thing. And initially Veronica's like, no, we need to call the police. But I don't know why she comes around to this idea, but she does. And, also to note, Veronica, huge pushover. Has no mind of her own for a long part of this movie.
Yeah. I mean, she mentions a lot that she can't control herself when she's around JD. Granted, it's Christian Slater, so, all is forgiven. But...
Yes. But also, with the Heathers, she can't make her own decisions.
Yeah, that's true.
So, just saying. She gets better throughout the film, but for the most part, she sucks. We then cut to school, and it looks like the principal and some teachers are talking about what they should do due to the death of Heather. And one of the, we'll call her more enlightened teachers, says that we should really get down and talk to these kids, and everyone makes fun of her because, of course, it's the 80s, mental health. Ha ha ha, that's stupid.
It is interesting.
Veronica...
It always is like the English teacher that really seems to take it more serious than the other teachers do. Because I know, so to go back with the whole situation, once Parkland happened when I was a junior, it was definitely like my English teacher that, was the one to bring up the situation the most and everything. Because it was very popular for kids to do like walkouts and stuff.
Right, I remember that.
In I don't want to say protest, but like to raise both awareness and kind of say like, hey, something has to be done about this, our school security, so that this shit doesn't happen. It was an interesting situation because the fact, like, while the whole thing was like, yeah, we're gonna get up and walk out of class to like protest against the school, but like the faculty was like 100% on board with it. So a lot of kids were kind of like, oh, okay, cool. We don't really, yeah, because it's like, it's weird. Like, it was weird for people that like the faculty was. I mean, granted, there were like that they were just on board with like the walkout, because you were hearing about like other schools where like if you got up and walked out, you were getting suspended. So I guess it was kind of cool that our faculty was kind of like had our back a little bit.
Yeah,
but it's
there's also when those were happening, again, not to be political or throw anything out there like that, but the schools where they were having an issue weren't in the, let's say, northern part of the country or left part of the country. They were in a specific area of this country.
Yeah.
So that goes to show you for sure. But yeah, I mean, I would assume faculty would be on board. They don't want to get shot either.
Yeah.
So hopefully at some point in our lifetime, some of that shit will change.
I don't know. You could just do what Australia did, and they had one incident in the late 90s, and we're just like, we're getting rid of guns.
Yeah, I literally don't know why we don't do that.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't want to get too political on this episode, but
yeah, same thing.
I don't know.
I will say though, I did see a really cool Vice documentary. Maybe I'll try to link it if I can find it again, where they were traveling around with British police. Mm-hmm. And they came across a guy with, I think it was a gun. Yeah, I think it was a handgun. Obviously, those are illegal in Britain. And the cameraman's like, well, you don't have guns. And he was clearly like freaking the fuck out. Like, we don't have guns. What are we going to do? And the cops were like, hey, calm down. Here's what we do. And they have a specific force of police. We would call them SWAT here. They call them something much better over there. They have the guns.
Yeah.
Nobody else, no other police officer, unless you have specific training and specific time on the force and specific instances where you can deal with that, are allowed to carry a weapon. So when you're in a situation with a man shooting at you, you clear everybody out of the way, civilians out of the way. You hunker down behind things you can't supposedly get shot, cars, whatever. And you call the motherfuckers with the guns. And that's it. Situation resolved. And the guy didn't even die. They shot him in the knee and took him away to jail. And I'll never forget that episode because I'm like, this was way too easy. I have no idea how our country functions.
I don't know.
Anyway, I'll try to find it. It was a really cool episode. They follow them for like a month.
It's almost like a lot of our problems could be fixed by following the examples of countries that already have these, that don't have these problems. Because they have,
right.
I don't know.
Medical safety nets with, health care for everybody, free education, and no guns. Oh my God, how does it work? Anyway, moving on. This episode's getting real deep. So, we're back at school in the locker room with the Heathers and Veronica. And Green Heather is inhaling some chicken wings. Good for you. Yellow Heather is kind of sad about the death of her. I don't know. It's hard to read her. And then Veronica straight goes and stands in the shower with all their clothes on, which I thought was weird, but okay. We then see some students with the teacher that wanted to talk about the feelings. I forget her name. And she's passing around the suicide note and asking everyone to talk about their feelings. That's terrible.
Yeah, that's just.
And how'd she get it?
Could you have a more tone deaf session in class? It's
terrible.
I don't know. But I did like.
Because then all these.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
There was the one guy, I can't remember his name, but he's the guy that was leading the whole raise money for starving African kids.
Right.
That was Heather and I used to date, and she broke up with me because she thought I was boring, but really it's just because she was unsatisfied with her life. And I was like, oh, Okay. Sure, buddy.
Okay, guy. But that's when Veronica starts laughing.
Yeah.
So real uncomfortable for everybody in that room.
Mm-hmm.
We then see Veronica and JD at his house watching the news, and Green Heather is like on every network telling them how much she misses Red Heather, and people are memorializing her, and it's obviously pissing off Veronica because she's like, she was a terrible person. Why is this happening? But that always happens, so I'm not sure why she's surprised. JD's dad then walks in, and their dynamic is also really fucking weird, and I don't understand it. They call each other dad and son, obviously in the opposite. It's just real weird.
So it's like they're trying to convey, like, I understand the dynamic and how they communicate, because it's basically like when when JD says hi son, it's like he's wanting his dad to have been the one to have said that as he comes in, and they go back and forth with that. They do a little bit later in the film where it's like, basically them speaking on the other's behalf because that's what they want to hear them say.
I get it. I get what you're saying, and you're totally right. It's just a weird dynamic.
Yeah, it's absolutely
also
bizarre. Yeah.
And also the dynamic between all the adults and kids in this movie, because Veronica has weird conversations with her parents too every time they interact with each other. Mm-hmm. It's just like the adults and parents in this movie are just super weird and portrayed as so out of touch and standoffish and not involved that it's so odd.
Well, I know that because the film does address, from looking at it from a perspective of a film that is addressing teen suicide. Granted, it's no one actually, well, there are attempts, but the whole thing is like it's staged suicide. It's all murder. But like there is, I think it does address a problem of some people in an older generation still not quite understanding mental health and the things that kids go through during the, during like a coming of age part of their life. And
yeah,
I have, seen situations with both, parents and, school faculty members that just don't take it as seriously as they should. So I think it does kind of bring light to it, but it does it in a very dramatized way. Which is natural because it's a movie. But
well, and I think you can kind of tell the writer this was clearly his dynamic with his parents, because it's very clear in the entire film. Yeah. So we're now at Red Heather's funeral, and the priest overseeing it is Otho from Beetlejuice.
Yes, I only know him from Beetlejuice. I don't think I.
You know what? Me too. And this movie.
Yeah.
I'll have to look up his IMDb because I'm sure he's in other things, but I don't remember him in anything else. But each friend is kind of taking their turn at Heather's coffin, saying their piece and stuff in their head, not out loud. Yellow Heather and Veronica are then outside, and she asks Veronica to double date tonight with Ram and Kurt. Barf. But she says, no, I have something going on with JD, but she begs her to go, and she finally agrees.
Which
Ram and Kurt.
Sorry, to go back on the funeral service a little bit. There is the segment where Green Heather is kind of talking about how she had always prayed that Heather would die, and I think this is the very beginning of what we see. Like we see Green Heather's true colors and how she's always been the one that's wanted to be on top. And Fair enough. So, but I think that's also just because she's also saying that because, Red Heather was a total bitch. And, but yeah, right. I think that's that, and how when they're flipping through the channels before and they see Green Heather on all the different news channels, on the different interviews, kind of shows that she also has been, she wants to be in the spotlight. So this is kind of like the early stages of we see, Green Heather start to take Red Heather's place. Yeah. And how she's, kind of wanted this for a while, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. Well, we know you're right. We find out soon enough. But Ram and Kurt are outside the funeral home, and they basically just like beat up these kids after the nerdy kids like flip them off, and it's dumb.
Sit and spin.
Again.
I love that line.
That is funny. Then we do see Veronica again. She's just agreeing to go with Yellow Heather on this date, and she's like, fine. But as long as they're not going to take us to a field, get drunk, and tip over cows. And she's like, no, that won't happen. And then we immediately cut to exactly that happening. And they're just standing there watching them because that's dumb. But they eventually tip this poor cow over, and then mud gets all over Yellow Heather and Veronica. And the next thing you see is Veronica's walking away, but basically in the background, poor Yellow Heather straight up getting raped. Like, she has no say in whatever's happening right there. Yeah. JD appears out of nowhere, though. And she's like, look, I was just doing a favor for her. And he's like, another fucking Heather. And he initially seems really pissed at her. But then he's like, fuck it, let's go get a cherry slushie. And they take off. Oh, he has a motorcycle, by the way, if we didn't mention that before.
Which makes him even cooler. And he smokes cigarettes.
Even cooler.
He smokes cigarettes. He rides a motorcycle.
Chain smokes.
And his last name is Slater. Well, is real.
I don't know how much cooler you could get. The next day, we're with Veronica looking over the school newspaper's tribute to Heather. And she says, I don't know, this looks really tacky. And just as soon as she's like talking to other people, that Courtney girl pops out of nowhere and says, tacky like last night. And they laugh at her. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she's like, Kurt told us all about your date. And she's like, I left him wasted in a field in cow shit because he tipped over a cow. And she's like, well, that's not what we heard or what he's telling people. And then one kid looks at her and kind of pulls her to the side and says, also something gross but funny, that Kurt told everybody that she let Ram and him sword fight in her mouth. Which is gross but funny when you think about that.
Also, the guy
happening.
Who plays Dennis is Mr. Mosby from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Oh. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all, but
no.
That was one of my childhood television shows, and it's really weird to see him in this film as a young kid in this film. It's really bizarre. Yeah. I'm just gonna. That's all I have on that.
That's funny, but it's recognizing him because obviously he's much younger. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. Veronica's obviously pissed, and we cut to her calling Kurt, and she basically sets him up for the next morning, him and Ram to meet her, and her and JD are in her room, and they're laughing, and they're getting guns ready, and you look down, and Veronica says, well, I don't know why there's a suicide note. We're using blanks. And he's like, well, we're not using blanks this time. He just says it very nonchalant, like, we're just going to go murder these dudes. Mm-hmm.
He basically describes it that, like, it's a specific bullet that's designed to, subtly break the skin. And, like,
right.
Yeah, and she's like, okay, so it doesn't kill them. It just lightly punctures their skin, and then they pass out looking like they're, been shot and dead. And then JD's like, exactly. And then Veronica's just kind of like, okay, that makes sense.
Right. That makes sense. That's a thing. Okay, I'll write this suicide note. So we then see her in the woods meeting both of them. She has kind of outlined circles on either side of her. And she tells them to, each go in a circle and get naked. And then Kurt's like, wait, aren't you getting naked? And she's like, no, you can rip my clothes off. So, of course, once they're naked, JD pops out of nowhere and shoots Ram right in the neck. And Veronica tries to shoot Kurt but misses. And he yells at her that, she missed him completely. And she's like, it's fine. It was worth it to see, how scared he was. And he's like, no, it's not. And he, runs after him. Mm-hmm. And at this moment, Veronica looks at Ram and realizes he is dead.
Yeah.
Super dead. And we see JD chasing Kurt kind of in a circle, basically. And he does end up right back to where they were. And he shoots him. So, now they're both... Or she shoots him. Now they're both dead.
Mm-hmm. Which is like, she's just like so willing to just go ahead and do that, knowing that Ram is dead.
Already dead, right. This is where you made a conscious decision to shoot someone.
Yeah, because before it was like, it was JD that was basically the one that killed Red Heather. And so it was like, and they did the whole suicide thing, like, to basically protect themselves from getting arrested. This is like she's making a conscious decision to kill him, like you said. So it's... Yeah. There
are 2 police officers sitting off somewhere outside these woods, though, and they hear the second shot, I believe, and come running.
Smoking some ganja.
Yeah, they're definitely getting high in their cop car. It's the 80s.
Yeah.
It's fine. They find the dead bodies, and one of them hears something in the woods, so goes off after that. Then he comes upon Veronica and JD, but they've kind of covered their tracks, and they're making out in their car. So he heads back, and the cops are looking... Oh, we didn't mention this. JD also got a bag together with, like, things that...
Homosexual items.
Right.
Quote, unquote, yeah.
Right, which I get some of them, but most of them
okay,
no.
The mineral water joke is kind of funny. I'm just going to put that out there.
Why is that funny?
I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny. Because
I have gay friends, and I specifically asked them about this, and they were like, we don't know. We don't know why that was a thing.
No,
it wasn't a thing in the 80s.
It's because it doesn't make any fucking sense that it's funny. I don't know. It's like, because I just thought it was funny where it was the one cop, he's like piecing everything together in his head, and he was like, how do you know this? And he was like, and he pulls out the mineral water from the bag, and the other cop just goes, they were gay. Like,
yep.
I don't know. It's dumb, and it's not right. I don't know. I don't know. I thought the mineral water joke was kind of funny. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't even understand it as like, it's like the film was trying to generate a stereotype that just didn't become a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
But it's dumb.
So if I'm repeating myself because of whatever happened audio-wise, I apologize. But Winona Ryder then pushes a cigarette thing in her car to light the cigarette and burns her hand. And instead of lighting the cigarette, she burns her hand. And then JD takes her hand and lights his cigarette with her burnt hand, which is disgusting and awful. Yeah.
At first, it's like, oh, it's a nice boyfriend going to help his wounded girlfriend. And it's like, no, I'm just trying to light my smoke.
Gross.
Fucking psychopath. Goddamn.
Seriously, fucking psychopath. They kind of go in this back and forth about how, she didn't want to kill them. And he said, well, you really did because you did shoot him. So this happened. Mm-hmm. And she almost laughs as she's doing I did not. Yes, you did. I did not. And I don't know if that was an accident during her shooting that she started laughing, or if they really wanted to have it look that way for the audience, but maybe. It's weird. We see Yellow and Green Heather now kind of approaching the car, and Green Heather says, oh, young love, because they're arguing back and forth, and a girl pops up and says, school's canceled today because Ram and Kurt killed themselves in a repressed homosexual sex pact. And they both look at each other like, oh my God. Also because Yellow Heather just had sex with him like the night before.
Yeah.
So that's also probably weird for her.
And that comes up later with Heather's ordeal as she struggles with her own thing later on. So
yeah,
I feel like Yellow Heather is one of those people that you actually slowly kind of start to like a little bit over the course of the film. She becomes a little bit more down to earth. When you can see.
She also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, she's kind of like, you can see that she also has her own struggle that she's going through, and granted, when she describes it, there's I'll get to that later when we get to the scene, but yeah, she does become a little bit less of a bitch at this point. Yeah. So
there's also that Yellow Heather never really does anything throughout the film, so I think she's, especially out of the actresses that were Granted, Red Heather dies pretty quickly, but out of the actresses, she's not a big actress. She wasn't really acting when she got this role. She doesn't really act too much after it, so that was probably why they cast her. And yeah, she just plays a smaller role, I think, in the whole cast dynamic for sure. So we're now at Ram and Kurt's funeral, and it's together. They have them both there, which is fucking weird. They weren't related. Let's put that out there. And they're dressed in suits with red football helmets, red flowers, red shoes, and red footballs. The red theme continues with everyone that dies in this film, which I didn't notice until this watch, the significance of carrying that red color through people that JD and Veronica kill. So just something weird to throw out there.
I'm sure there's some kind of deep symbolism behind it that I'm missing here. Because usually red is usually like, I mean, it's often a color that represents, I guess, lust, but also like anger at the same time. So it's
right. So I read a article about the Ryder in particular, and how I'll kind of talk about that in fun facts a little bit. But the red color is significant to him for this reason: it represented everything that people hated in the people that died. So you take the Red Heather, who obviously, was red to begin with, and then just carried that throughout anybody that died in the film. And at the end, which I'll get to in fun facts, there was a significance that ties that red in. So we'll talk about that when we get there.
They also consistently had their like red Letterman jackets on too.
Exactly. And that's another theme in the movie. You see people that are labeled in the movie technically as the bad people of the film, because remember, the douchebag guys from the college also wearing red in their sweaters. So it just carries out throughout the film. JD makes kind of a joke though, and they start to laugh, but then a little girl turns around and she's crying, and it makes Veronica feel awful because these are fucking people and they have families and stuff, so you killed them and you're a terrible person.
Yeah,
sit there and feel bad about it.
Yeah, but they were also like rapists, so.
But that little girl didn't know that.
Yeah.
So again, we see Veronica writing in her diary, and this is where she says, I can't control myself around JD. He's dangerous, and that makes me dangerous, basically. So we're now back with the teachers, and this time the teacher that wanted to talk about their feelings is kind of running the show, and she's like, we need to, now that we have 3 dead students, we need to come together, talk about things, and apparently that involves having a camera crew come into your school and record it while you are like kumbayaing in the cafeteria with everybody. It's weird.
Death brings publicity and just people just trying to take advantage of a tragic situation, which is, the American way.
True. But Veronica bails out of this whole feelings sesh in the cafeteria, and we see JD go talk to Martha. So, little foreshadowing for later. We cut to JD's house again, and they're now arguing back and forth, and she's like, I don't want to kill anybody. And again, JD's dad walks in, and he's excited because he shows them a tape of him blowing up a building, which people were protesting to blow up. So you do see this parallel between JD and his dad now, where his dad's also a piece of shit and does terrible things. So not super surprised your son turned out that way. And again, he's not killing people inertly, I guess, but still. It's fucking creepy how excited he is about this building blowing up.
Yeah. He also did discuss, like, JD goes into the backstory of how he lost his mom.
Right.
Who was in one of the buildings that his dad destroyed that, everybody says was an accident, but he knows that his mom knew what she was doing when she went in there, so. Right.
Which is obviously his first taste of death / suicide.
It's kind of the tragic backstory to the antagonist that we get there.
But just then a song comes on the radio that's teenage suicide, And JD says they're playing our song and laughs, and that is dark as fuck.
Yeah.
Not good. He then takes his gun out and shoots the radio. And she's like, all right, we're breaking up. I'm out of here. And she tries to leave. And this is the first time he is using, I'd say, sex in a
It's the first time
manner.
he really gets aggressive with her. Yeah. And
Right. And he kisses her. Thank God. That's all he does.
Mm-hmm.
But she basically pushes him off of her and says, leave me alone. Don't come to school and don't mess with me. Then we see JD talking to Green Heather, and he shows her a picture of her and Martha. And she says, this was forever ago. What is this, blackmail? And he says, well, the school needs a new leader. So this is where you really see that JD didn't give a shit about killing Heather or killing Kurt and Ram. It's, it's a fucking game.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, that was Red Heather, but she couldn't handle it. But it looks like now you can. And again, just working this weird angle with her. We then see Veronica get into Red Heather's locker, which is still not cleared out, and there's still shit in there, which is weird. You'd think they would have taken care of that when she died.
I guess they,
or her
they kind
parents
of,
might want
I guess
it.
maybe they turned it into a memorial type thing or something.
I don't know. Green Heather comes up behind her, though, and says, guess who? And she has a red bow in her hair, and Veronica rolls her eyes and leaves because she's like, fuck, this is happening now, apparently. We then see Veronica and Betty over at Veronica's house. Shocker, playing croquet. Betty starts to win, and Veronica can knock her out, but Veronica said that's not my style and lets her win. Both Heathers then appear, green and yellow Heather. Mm-hmm. And obviously Betty's uncomfortable, so she dips out. Green Veronica says, well, I'm red now. And they don't show us playing the croquet game, but again, it's just that transition we've been saying the whole time of green Heather turning into red Heather.
Mm-hmm. And you see that it's at this point, it's very much like Veronica trying to bring back her old life before, like prior to the Heathers, and like trying to erase the Heathers and JD from her life by having, trying to rekindle her relationship with her old friend Betty and just trying to get away from everything. But it's like, I get that, but it's like you also like are part of the problem. You are the one that caused this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like she was like, and she has like, she's just so focused on how like, oh, the school's all fucked up because like the way that society is treating teenagers and they're not taking suicide serious enough. Is like, but it's not suicide, it's murder that you assisted in. And like she has no like remorse or anything for the fact that she was involved in that, and that she literally pulled the trigger and took Kurt's life. So it's like, that's why I really struggled to like Veronica as a character.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Because there's no, even at the end where it's supposed to be that, she redeems herself and she saved the day, it's not good. Mm-hmm. I still don't like her. Yeah. So. And we kind of cut to her writing again in her diary, talking about how now green Heather is just red Heather, which obviously is true, taking on her whole persona. But she's also doing the fake note thing to other people, just like Red Heather did, and again, being mean and awful. And right before this scene, she was at Veronica's house, and Veronica slaps her, and they kind of get into an argument. But just as quickly as she does that, Green Heather's like, oh, this radio program's on. And, like, it doesn't even faze her that Veronica's, A, that mad at her, and B, that she hit her. So, excuse me, on the radio program, Hot Probs, which is so 80s and amazing, Yellow Heather calls in and starts talking about, yes, her problems. The last guy she slept with killed himself because he was homosexual.
She's failing math class. She's just having a rough time.
So immediately, Green Heather goes to school and tells everybody about it. So they're all making fun of her, which is terrible. But as she's sitting in class, she probably hears people whispering about her, so she runs out of the classroom, goes to the bathroom, and we see her trying to open a bottle of pills to, I'm assuming, swallow all the pills. Mm-hmm. But Veronica gets there just in time to have her spit them out. She tells her, look, suicide isn't cool, so don't do that. It's not like a cool thing to do for kids. Mm-hmm. We then see JD and Green Heather, who is now in all red this time, and he gives her the picture to burn and asks her to sign this petition for everyone, asks her to have everyone sign this petition at school. He says it's for some organization to sponsor their prom for an anti-suicide initiative.
It's to get Big Fun to play at their prom. The Big Fun being the fake band that, created the song Teen Suicide, which is the...
Right.
Yeah.
Very popular now. Mm-hmm. She says she will get on it, right away and get everyone to sign it. And she eventually corners Veronica in the hallway and wants her to sign it. And she's like, look, why can't you just be a friend? And she's like, this was JD's idea, so you should just sign it and move on. And she tries to slap her again, but this time she catches her hand. So, also, weird dynamic.
And I think there is a moment, so when Heather first shows up at Veronica's house, like, during the whole, like, when she slaps her, mm-hmm. they do discuss how Martha did attempt to take her own life. And this is the first one of the first instances of that we get, besides Heather in the bathroom, of someone who has gone through a ton of harassment and is genuinely, mm-hmm. Not because it's, cool or anything, and not, like, that's probably not the best way to put it, but, like, she's genuinely...
there's really no other way to put it, because she says the line... It's just another example of a geek trying to do a popular kid thing and failing miserably. Yeah. And she's not wrong. But this is a person who would have a reason to commit suicide, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's sad, like, when you look at it from that perspective, because it's like it's hard to take the film seriously as a film that I guess is trying to bring attention to mental health and teen suicide.
I don't think that was the goal.
Well, because I don't know, because it's like, because Walters, I guess, was, because he was, I think, called out for when the film came out and how similar it was to another film, and he said that he may have seen something about it and subconsciously came up with ideas that made its way into Heather's, but he wanted to make something that was more realistic in the realm of, representation of teen suicide. So I think there is, like, some aspect of that is trying to bring attention to this matter. And I think there are parts of the film that certainly do, like I mentioned before, with, like, the way that some parents and, like, school faculty members just don't quite understand how big of a problem it can be. Mm-hmm. But it's, like, I don't know. Yeah.
It's not a great narrative, period. So it is hard to see where you're actually putting the anti-suicide message in. Mm-hmm. But so Veronica tries to slap Heather again, doesn't work. JD comes, like, slithering down the stairs in this, like, he does this weird, like, shoulder thing sometimes. It looks odd. Like he's about to fall, but he doesn't. Mm-hmm. And he tries to kiss her again, and she's like, it's fucking over, bro. Like, get off me. Yeah. And as soon as she gets home, her parents say that her friend JD stopped by and warned them that she's thinking about suicide. So they have to look for all these warning signs. And he left a note, and they hand her the note, and it says, recognize the handwriting in Veronica's handwriting. Mm-hmm. So he's basically threatening to kill her, too. And then she goes up to her room and finds a fucking Barbie hanging on the ceiling. So he put that there.
Yeah.
And that's fucking creepy. So we see him outside on his bike and, again, brought the ladder. He sneaks up to her room, and she's kind of scared of him this time. And he starts reading from Green Heather's copy of Moby Dick, and he's, like, underlining passages to use in her suicide note, which is awful. And Veronica tells him to get out and calls him psychotic. Totes true. He then drags her down some stairs, grabs a knife, and she's like, look, that's dirty. Heather would never use that to slit her wrists, which is an odd thing to say initially.
Also,
so he cleans it.
I was a little confused during this part. Are we in Green Heather's house, or are we still in Veronica's house?
Right. So, roundabout, it's a dream.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter
Right.
where they are. I think in the dream we're supposed to be in Green Heather's house.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense. But also the kitchen looks very similar to Red Heather's kitchen.
Right.
So it's, I mean, like you said, it's a dream sequence, so it doesn't matter. But I don't know. It was a weird continuity thing that caught my attention.
Mm-hmm. Because then we cut to a weird funeral with people wearing like 3D glasses and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then Red Heather comes out of nowhere. And now she's in black and red, not white and red, which I think is kind of poignant for her being maybe somewhere she wasn't expecting to go.
Yeah.
Hint, hint. You were a terrible person. She tells Veronica her afterlife is so boring. And then she says, well, I made your favorite spaghetti with lots of oregano. And she opens where the holy water would be and then shoves her head in there. But then we hear Veronica's mother yelling her that dinner's ready, and we see that it was a dream. She writes a little more in her diary and says, well, let's see how he reacts when there's a suicide he didn't perform himself happen. So we see Veronica hanging. It looks like sheets. She's hung herself with some sheets. JD climbs up her window, gets up in there, and is like, I can't believe you did this. I loved you, and I was coming to kill you, but first I was going to try and win you over with my amazing petition. And he reads this petition, which everybody signed, and it's essentially a huge suicide note because he plans to blow up the whole school, and technically all the kids signed up to die, is what he's getting at. It's a fucking crazy person roundabout way of saying this is okay to commit mass murder. So he hears her mom yell again. He jumps out the window. Mom comes in, sees her hanging. Initially, she freaks out, but then Veronica picks her head up, and she's not dead. So she faked all that. We then see JD getting a bunch of dynamite ready, and we cut to school, I think the next day, and Veronica's there, and one teacher kind of acts shocked because JD told her she committed suicide last night. And again, I ask, one, when did he tell this teacher? It's the next day at school. So did he call her at home or tell her in person? I'm so confused.
Or maybe he told her early enough in the morning. I don't know. But
could be. I feel like it's the first bell though, but maybe not. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. She probably just came to school later. She asks the teacher though, have you seen JD? And she says no, but then she kind of looks around and sees him walking in. She hides initially, but then starts to follow him around. She somehow loses him, though, which I'm like, okay, it's the school you've been at for years, but fine. She then asks the kid as soon as the bell rings and the class are letting out what's going on, and he says it's Friday. She's like, oh, yeah, pep assembly. And then she asks him what's below the gym, and he says the boiler room. So she immediately heads that way. She corners him on the stairs with, I think, his gun. She somehow got his gun, and he basically is like,
to add a bit of context to JD's thinking. And so when the scene where his dad comes in, he talks about how he put an explosive in the boiler room, and that's how he collapsed the building, because his whole thing is like some realtor construction type thing where he has to demolish buildings or something so that they can rebuild something other. But they talk about how they put a bomb in the boiler room, and so that's kind of foreshadows how JD is performing.
True.
Yeah.
But he also hides dynamite under the bleachers in the gym, just for an extra, make sure everybody's dead. So Veronica corners him in the stairwell. He basically knocks her out, though, and just keeps going. And we kind of cut back and forth between seeing everybody at the gym, cheering on the cheerleaders and football team and all kinds of stuff, to JD getting into the boiler room, setting up these bombs. So we finally see we see Veronica get up, and she does grab a fire extinguisher. So she tries to hit him with it. So they kind of fight back and forth, kind of fight for the gun. She finally gets the gun and shoots him right in the hand. And she's like, look, I'll kill you. I swear to God, I'll kill you. It's over. Just help me stop it. At this point, the bomb will go off, killing them both. So I think this is kind of poignant. Like, maybe you should just not do this. He's like, look, only different social types can get along in heaven. Which I think is a really dark line, too. She says, which button do I push to turn it off? And he says the red one. Well, they're all red. Yeah. So that doesn't help either. More red foreshadowing. She shoots him a couple more times, and he ends up stabbing this pocket knife he had into the bomb, and it stops the timer, and he kind of goes down. She looks super beat up, though. Like, way more than what actually happened to her, I feel like, as she kind of, like, wanders outside after this, showdown. But he's right behind her, so he's definitely not dead. And he kind of turns to her, and he's like, now that you're dead, what are you going to do with your life? And she pulls out a cigarette, and he pulls back his coat, and we see this little timer thing starting to beep. And initially you think he's pretty close to her, but then you see the next shot of her up these stairs, and he blows up, and there's, tons of space in between them. But it does kind of rock the school. So everybody goes out, kind of freaks out, goes outside. Starts to exit the gym, I should say. Veronica, who looks, again, very beat up and now burnt, like she was in a fire, walks right up to Green Heather, pulls the red bow out of her hair, tells her there's a new sheriff in town.
Let's not forget the cigarette lit her, or the bomb explosion lit Veronica's cigarette.
Indeed.
Which is pretty...
It did.
That was kind of cool.
That was funny. A funny thing to pull in, for sure. She walks up to Martha, who's now on, like, a scooter. Because when she did try to commit suicide, she walked into traffic, so she clearly got hit by a car. She says, my date for prom flaked. Do you want to hang out and get some videos and pop some popcorn? And Martha says, yeah, I'd like that. And the final scene is Veronica walking down the hallway, and Martha's just, like, driving circles around her as they roll the credits. And that's the movie.
That's the movie. I do like the ending. I think it's solid. But it's not.
I think the ending's just as random as the beginning.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I thought
fair
it was
enough.
I thought it was a fine ending. But this was not the original intended ending.
It was not.
They had a completely different idea that they were forced to can because the producers had some reason. But the whole idea was that I think it was that JD was successful with setting off the bomb, and everyone was basically, and there was going to be like a whole scene with like people in heaven, and there's like this whole big like prom party going on in heaven.
They're going to prom.
Yeah.
In heaven, and everything was red. Everyone's dressed in red.
I thought it was
red.
White. I heard it was white.
The floor and walls are white because, duh, heaven.
Yeah.
But everyone's dressed in red.
Okay.
And, everything you can see besides that is red.
Gotcha.
Again, just tying in all the red things.
But
yes, you're correct.
If I'm not mistaken, that's because I haven't seen the show. Is that what they did to end the first season of the show?
No, it just got canceled.
Okay. Well, I heard something along the lines of that was the plan to like bring that back with the show.
Could have been, but that's not how they ended it.
Gotcha. They turned this movie into a musical. I haven't seen it, and I probably never will. So,
me neither.
Yeah, it's like I find it hard. Like, how do you turn a movie like this into a musical?
I don't know.
I mean, they
That's
did it.
A lot of creativity.
I heard it's good. Again, I'll probably never watch it, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think I like this movie.
Well, I have some other fun facts for sure.
Let's hear them.
So, again, this was a box office flop.
Yep.
It only grossed a little over $1 million.
With a budget of $3 million. Yikes.
Yep, $3 million.
I think it only
Not
made
great.
I think it only made like $200K in the opening weekend or something. It was
Yeah, it was like 7th or something.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, very rough. This became a cult classic, though, because when fans started to be able to rent it, obviously, early 90s, Blockbuster, all that stuff, and they played it on TV a lot, apparently. It got syndicated very quickly.
Seems like a very bizarre film to... Well, I guess, if it was the 90s, then they were probably a little bit more lenient as to what they put on TV, because I feel like this would be like a weird movie to just show on public television.
I saw it on TV.
Yeah.
The first time I ever saw it, it was on TV. It was like TBS or TNT or like one of those kind of networks for sure.
Okay.
But as you could rent it, obviously like an entire generation of people fell in love with this dark ass comedy. So not just 80s kids. Daniel Waters, the writer, wanted Stanley Kubrick to direct this, which would have been probably pretty good. Yeah.
I think it probably would have been better. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of Kubrick stuff, so it's some of his stuff.
He's dark.
Yeah. I don't know. Some of his stuff's a little too abstract for me.
I agree. He wanted this to be the opposite of, the John Hughes films, the Breakfast Clubs. He wanted something dark. So Stanley Kubrick probably would have been good for that.
Yeah.
With that small budget, though, the filmmakers only had 33 days to shoot. So most of the film, I should say, was actually shot in a high school in LA that they rented out / it was abandoned. I couldn't find if it was actually a working high school. But Veronica and Red Heather's bedrooms were both built in the gymnasium. So they just had to back and forth from their bedrooms. Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah.
Jennifer Conley and Shannon Doherty, before she got the Green Heather role, wanted to play Veronica. But when Winona Ryder, who was only 15 at the time, got it after her first read, she had just come off Beetlejuice, so she looked very much still Lydia-like.
I believe Waters is known for saying that she wasn't pretty enough for the role.
Right. And she's pale and has dark hair, but as soon as she read for it, he was like, oh, shit, you got it.
Apparently she also went to one of those mall Macy's or whatever and did a full makeover type thing to
yeah, for sure.
But she's also just a great actress, so
even that young. And I guess I didn't even really realize she was that young in Beetlejuice or this movie.
I knew that she was young in Beetlejuice because I guess Beetlejuice came out in 88. Right?
She had literally just wrapped it 3 months prior to auditioning for this, she said. Something very close.
It's one of the few times where you can actually get someone that's, a teenager to play a teenager instead of playing a Hannah Montana where you have Jason Earls who's 30 trying to play someone who's 15.
Right.
So
because all the other cast aside from Yellow Heather were under the age of 18. Shannon Doherty was also 15 at the time she shot this movie. So we did have teenagers playing teenagers.
Yeah, I think Yellow Heather, she was 23 or something at the time.
Yeah, 23.
Yeah, but I think she lied about her age or something.
She did.
Yeah, she said that by the time they start photography, she'll be 18. So
yeah. She's also one of those actresses that just has an older face to her. So I don't think that really would have mattered if she was 18. She looks older. She looks older than anybody else in the cast, in my opinion.
She gave me young Jamie Lee Curtis vibes.
Yeah. She's very attractive. Yeah. Very pretty. Christian Slater and Kim Walker, who is Red Heather, were dating at the time. So there were actual cliques on the set. So obviously Slater and Walker hanging out together the most. Or alone. Slater, apparently, Christian Slater was really, getting into the JD role, so he would just, chill by himself, smoke a bunch of cigarettes, probably do drugs.
Probably.
Yellow Heather and Winona Ryder were actually really good friends while they were shooting as well. They even stayed at each other's houses pretty often, because she couldn't, leave.
Yeah.
JD tells Veronica I'm going to butcher it because I don't know German. The Ike Luge bullets he used to scare the jocks that were supposed to be fake. That's what he calls them. That actually means I'm lying in German.
Oh, really?
I thought that was funny.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. We mentioned the Jack Nicholson thing. We also mentioned the reboot and the musical that came out in 2013. Mm-hmm. One of her most famous lines from the film, Kim Walker, Red Heather. Ashely and Doherty, Heather Duke. So that was her last name, Green Heather. Mm-hmm. Do you have a brain tumor for breakfast? Did you have a brain tumor for breakfast? In obviously a very bitchy way. A dark twist to that. Unfortunately, Walker passed away 12 years later, only at the age of 32 from a brain tumor.
Did you watch the same E.T. video that I watched?
No.
No? Okay. I watched a video by E.T. by Entertainment Tonight that basically described it the same way that you just did. So.
Oh. No, I didn't see it.
Interesting. But yeah.
I do have a couple of my fun facts are from not E.T. It was Entertainment Weekly.
Okay.
So kind of the same thing.
Gotcha. Apparently, Winona Ryder's agent basically begged her not to take this role because they believed that it would ruin her career. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of not the case because, this movie's pretty popular now. It wasn't when, it flopped pretty hard, so I'm pretty sure the agent was kind of giving a
I told
you so kind of thing at the beginning. But as, early cult classics are, they get popularized with home video and their niche crowds. So, yeah.
We kind of mentioned the color schematics for all the Heathers.
Mm-hmm.
So, Red Heather, Heather Chandler, Heather McNamara was yellow Heather, and Heather Duke was green Heather. Veronica, obviously, on the other hand, she wore like blacks, blues, purples. Yeah. She wore all kinds of still darker colors. So they all have signature colors for a reason. Like I said, Heather Chandler red because that's supposed to represent the evil of the movie. Heather McNamara as yellow is kind of the light and aloof person. Mm-hmm. Heather Duke as green was supposed to be the down-to-earth person, which she started out to be. And then, of course, she morphed into the red Heather. And then with Veronica just wearing blacks, whites, and blues, he described it as, the director and writer described it as putting her in colors that made her invisible, so she wasn't standing out like the Heathers. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And this movie just paved the way for, I think, every other teen girl movie that really came after it. Jawbreaker is the closest example to this. It's literally a shot for shot of this movie in a different manner. Instead of killing all the Heathers, you kill one person and the popular people deal with that. Mean Girls has a lot of similarities. Clueless even has certain things. Mm-hmm. Jennifer's Body takes a lot from this movie as well. So, again, it's just an essential cult classic for sure. And those are my fun facts.
Nice. Yeah, it's a movie.
It's a movie.
It's a movie. It doesn't hold up very well.
It did not.
But most movies from this time period kind of don't.
They don't. Unless they're like, feel-good romantic movies. I don't think there's tons that we see anymore from the 80s that really hold up.
Or a lot of like old action movies and stuff, which kind of sort of do. Yeah. But all right. Sure. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Cult Cinema Podcast. Thank you, each and every one of you, for tuning into this episode, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. We're everywhere. You can listen to us wherever. But if you are listening on either Apple Podcasts or YouTube, feel free to leave a comment expressing or telling us what movie you want us to do, because we're running out of movies on the list that we have. So we need suggestions. But feel free to also let us know what you think of the show. How can we improve it? What can we, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. We do want to hear feedback, and of course you can always follow us on Instagram as well to know, when new episodes are coming out and to keep up with the show and that kind of fun stuff. So
next week we are doing I don't know how to say this. I like this movie, but again, it's not going to hold up well, and it's a cult classic, but it's just not going to hold up well either. Yeah. But it's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So.
I haven't seen this. I've been wanting to see it for a long time.
All right. There's good and bad, but Yeah.
It's fun.
I think you'll like it, though. I do.
My one of my buddy's Instagram usernames for a while, I don't know if it still is, but it was Fear and Loathing in Ohio.
Nice.
So
creative.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited and looking forward to that one. We're kind of like, our backlog has kind of ended at this point. So like we're recording this 2 days or not 2 days, because this will go up Friday. So 3 days before it'll go up, because it's Tuesday the 9th, and this will go up the following Friday. So I got to get started on that edit.
There's also something to mention for Christmas. I thought this would be a really perfect time to get a fan request for a Christmas movie. I don't have anything Christmas related on the list, unless you would like to suggest a Christmas movie. I don't know which one to do.
Die Hard.
Which ones to do.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and I will die on that hill.
I agree.
Okay, cool. But yeah, if you guys, I don't have anything that at least comes to the top of my head, but if you guys have if you have ideas, leave them in the comments. We'll definitely take a look.
Absolutely. Or DM us. Honestly,
yes.
I check that. So go ahead on Instagram. Get at me.
All right. Awesome. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning into this episode. We will see you in the next one.
Thank you.